President Donald Trump has paused his $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund, the Justice Department confirmed Monday, at least temporarily, while the DOJ cast blame on a recent court ruling for the fund chasing operations. Reports suggest the Trump administration is instead backing down amid GOP criticism of the settlement. I think this was just so bad and so corrupt that, like, even the Republicans, who are super beholden to Daddy Trump, who runs the whole party at this point, and has for a long time, are against this sort of thing, because I think they know eventually he's gonna not be here anymore. Eventually he's either not going to be able to run in 2028 or and I think even after like 2028, let's say, no matter who's elected, right, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or elected in 2028, assuming it's not him, I think he will still have a significant impact over the way the Republican Party and the conservative movement in this country is run. I think up until he dies, right? But he's not going to live forever. And so whenever he is off of this mortal plane, he will, they have to plan for that. They know that this sort of a thing and playing and going along with this sort of a settlement will only look bad in the future. The DOJ said Monday it will abide by a recent court ruling that temporarily blocked the $1.776 billion fund, which was created as part of Trump's settlement with the IRS and allows people who feel they've had the judiciary system weaponized against them to seek payment. Just a quick breakdown of what happened recently with the IRS. Trump, his sons, and the Trump Organization sued the IRS because of leaks of their tax documents back in like 2020, I think, or something like that, in 2019. It's a civil suit. So he was originally seeking some sort of traditional settlement where I think he was suing for $10 billion and then maybe a settlement of $5 billion. There's a huge corruption aspect there because the Treasury Department and the IRS, who are being sued by him, his sons, and the Trump Organization, are literally, like, their lawyers are part of the DOJ, who's an executive agency who he appoints the head of, and that head of the executive agency controls. So basically, he can tell who he appoints to the DOJ to, appoint a lawyer that's going to defer to him and not follow the rule of law, and just it's a significant conflict of interest. Part of the settlement that they reached, instead of a traditional cash settlement, was this like anti-weaponization government fund where people could apply for the government alleging lawfare or weaponization against them. And people were specifically pointing to the January 6 rioters, to people like Enrique Tarrio, to people who were under investigation during the 2016 Mueller Russia probe, that the government was being weaponized against them, that these weren't in fact legitimate legal proceedings, but that they were trying to target them and engage in lawfare or whatever that means. And so they could get a direct cash payment from this fund as restitution. He also received a very, on shaky grounds, legal immunity from audits and anything relating to tax documentation prior to the initiation of the settlement. So any years prior to 2026, they would not be allowed to be audited for purposeful skirting of the rules or anything like that, right? If he engaged in tax fraud, whether it was purposeful or accident, they couldn't, the IRS couldn't go back and litigate that, right? And any ongoing lawsuits or disputes over debt or things like that were dropped, right? Super corrupt, super weird. I was arguing that I thought this anti-weaponization fund might be able to hold legally, but that their like immunity from to be audited moving forward regarding years prior to the settlement wasn't going to hold. But maybe it's both that aren't going to hold, because I still don't think that aspect of the settlement is going to hold. But if a judge is blocking this, at least temporarily, then, and they're looking at this and they think the political backlash from supporting this on the Republican side is bad enough that they're going to table this idea, that I don't think any parts of this suing the IRS over the leaking of his tax documents is going to end up working out legally in the long run. The announcement followed reports by multiple outlets that the Trump administration planned to kill the fund or restrict it, with Senate Majority Leader John Toome saying Monday lawmakers were in discussion with the White House about making changes to the settlement. While the Trump administration blamed the court ruling for its decision to halt the fund, the court did not issue a ruling that would have made that necessary, as it instead blocked the fund from moving forward temporarily in order to allow court briefs to be filed, but did not make any determination that the fund was unlawful or should be blocked long term. Instead, I was saying before, and I wonder if this signals that this thought process is like, I think this is a great thing for him to do. Not great thing, obviously, it's a horrible, corrupt, stupid thing to do. But like from his perspective, I think it makes a lot more sense to sort of strong arm this thing through after the midterms, right? They don't want the backlash from this sort of thing to affect their midterm chances, right? But after the midterms, Donald Trump likely has 2 more years in office, and then, unless he tries something screwy, which it doesn't seem like is going to work out, like him running in 2028, I don't see any way that that's going to actually happen, or him trying to run as vice president or something, right? He's going to be almost 90 years old or over 90 years old or something, right? I think it's very possible that he's got 2 years left, and he's got 2 years left to kind of just do whatever he wants as the head executive, right? Because it's very possible that the House or the Senate is going to be lost to Democrats. And so, while currently the Republicans have all 3 branches of government, they have control of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency, so they can pass basically whatever legislation that they are able to agree upon. That very well could not be the case moving after the midterms, right? And he could be a lame duck where the House is leading, the House is majority Democrat or the Senate is majority Democrat while he's in office. So their ability to pass Republican-led bills is going to be gone. And so I think that would be the time that he starts to do some sort of crazy stuff like this, some stuff that looks really bad, because then it also makes it easier for Republicans to sort of point at him. The ones that don't disagree with it, the ones that think that this is bad politically, can kind of point at him as like a rogue figure, like, oh, we don't support this, but there's nothing we can do about it, sort of thing. Like, it makes more sense to do this sort of thing, or at least delay it until after the midterms. Instead, reports suggest the Trump administration intended to back down from the fund amid widespread criticism from GOP lawmakers about the policy, which had stopped congressional leaders from bringing an immigration enforcement bill up for a vote. It's unclear whether the White House intends to only keep the $1.8 billion fund on hold until a court allows it to move forward, which could happen within weeks, or more broadly plans to nix the fund entirely. And the White House only responded with a link to the DOJ's post on Twitter on Monday when approached for comment. I have a feeling they're going to try and just delay this. I have a hard time imagining they're going to completely get rid of this because of like what I just said, that he could just wait until after the midterms, and then any Republican who was against this can just claim that he's a rogue agent and that they had nothing to do with this, even though they sort of allowed him to delay this. It's unclear how long the $1.8 billion fund could stay on hold. The court order that blocked it keeps the fund on pause through at least June 12th, when a hearing is scheduled for whether it should move forward, but it remains to be seen how the Trump administration will respond if the court reinstates it. It's still possible the Trump administration will try to revive the controversial settlement, as an anonymous administration official told Axios on Monday only that the fund was dead for now. Judge Leon M. Brinkema ruled Friday to temporarily bar the Trump administration from taking any further action regarding the fund, including transferring money to it, considering any claims for relief, and giving out any money through the fund. People were already applying to it, as far as I understand, like just a day or two after it was released, including this guy named Michael something, I can't remember, I'll put it on the screen, who was one of his like close allies in 2016 when apparently his campaign colluding with Russia to try and get dirt on Hillary Clinton and stuff, which is the whole Steele dossier, the Mueller investigation and whatnot. She did not offer any reasoning behind her decision and did not make any judgment on whether or not the fund was lawful, only halting it so the parties in the lawsuit can file arguments on it on why it should or should not be paused for a longer period of time as litigation against it moves forward. Schumer wrote, Democrats will force their GOP colleagues to vote on the issue. Republicans voting on the fund would force them to publicly state they support or oppose it, which could be a liability ahead of the midterms. Democrats are forcing Republicans to make one simple choice: kill the slush fund or own it. It's very possible that the judge could come back, after because they've only temporarily, like they said, they only temporarily delayed it through June 12th, I think. So they could say that, after June 12th or whatever, or some other date after that everything's legally kosher and that they can move forward with this. I wouldn't be surprised if even if like June 12th, they say everything's fine, you can go ahead with this, do whatever you want, that they decide to delay its initiation and paying out claims and doing all that stuff until after the midterm, so they can't experience any potential negative backlash from it, because it looks really bad. Especially if they wanted to go the route of trying to pay January 6th rioters, right? I read that lawyers representing groups of hundreds of those January 6 rioters who were charged with crimes and were pardoned when Trump initially took office in 2024 are now looking to get paid, which is absolutely absurd. And I think would just look so bad, even for many Republicans or conservative leading people in this country who recognize that, like, okay, many of the people who acted on, the vast majority of people who acted on, if not literally all of them on January 6th, are just insane people who deserve to be punished for what they did, and don't deserve to be paid restitution, which is cray cray.